when Doug and I presented some of these early findings in Paris, Jean Tirole was on the panel with us. Jean is a very famous French economist and actually very famous for his work in the United States as well. And he said one of the things that made it fun, and he was sort of jesting about this crisis, was that it showed that asymmetric information gets markets into trouble. And that is, I think, the situation we've gotten into with this, although there are other issues as well. So when you had your earlier conversation, should we ban adjustable rate mortgages, I think the answer to that is no, you shouldn't ban them. There may be certain mortgages that you don't allow to be offered because you think that borrowers really don't have the information to decide rationally whether this was a good choice or not. Now, you've posed to me a different question. You said, well, how can there be asymmetric information, if I can put it that way, when you're selling to UBS or some other organization? And I think that's a good question. And again, in some earlier meetings, we've had people in the audience say, well, what should have happened is there should have been whole teams of people really evaluating these different assets and finding out what was underneath them and making sure that they didn't have the problems that they turned out to have. But that is not a very efficient way to make a market. In practice, I don't think you can sustain that everybody who buys a particular set of assets is going to do the necessary due diligence to really understand what's behind it. What happened in practice, of course, is that people relied on the credit rating agencies and to some extent on the reputation of the institutions that were issuing them. In the light of what's happened, these purchasers of these securities are going to be much more careful next time around. What we need what we suggest is that if we have more transparency, then we won't, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, running into that same situation. So yes, these are sophisticated buyers, but at the same time, creating more transparency, I think, gives them an advantage in not getting into this same trouble again in the future.